The first time I saw the Sea Mercy, I wasn't sure if I was climbing aboard a boat or stepping into a story that had already started without me. The salt in the air didn't feel fresh. It felt old. Like it had soaked into wood and bone for generations. I coughed as I stepped onto the deck, my lungs not used to this kind of air. Not anymore. The paint was peeling in layers, and the deck creaked under my boots like it was warning me. But I didn't stop. I couldn't afford to. I had left Miami behind 3 weeks earlier. Or maybe I ran from it. Same thing, really. I'd made choices I couldn't take back, sold out my own crew when the feds got too close. It was that or go down with the rest. I told myself I'd do it differently if I had another chance, but the truth is, survival was always the louder voice in my head. That voice got sharper after years in foster homes and sharper still in juvenile lockup. I knew what it meant to look out for yourself first. Still, I didn't sleep well after I gave up Angel and Ramon. I'd see their faces in dreams that felt too real. I'd wake up sweating, still hearing their voices from that backroom in the bar when I slipped out the exit. The guilt never left, but it didn't stop me from getting on a bus headed north, keeping to small towns and gas station coffee until I ended up in a place called Port Langley, staring at job postings I didn't know how to read anymore. I met Willa at a bait shop near the docks. I was leaning on a counter that smelled like old shrimp, trying to decide if dock assistant was just a nicer way of saying grunt. She was maybe in her 60s, but she moved like someone who'd been wrestling ropes and storms longer than I'd been alive. She didn't smile when she saw me. Just looked me up and down and asked if I knew how to stay quiet and work hard. I told her I could. She offered me a bunk on her boat, cash at the end of each week, meals included. Said she didn't care about resumes or background checks. Just that I followed her rules. There was something in her voice that made me pay attention. It wasn't soft, but it wasn't cold either. Like she'd seen too much to waste time pretending. Later that afternoon, she handed me a weathered piece of paper. 6 lines written in small, careful letters. These, she said, tapping the top with a chipped fingernail, are not suggestions. You break one, you might not come back from it. You hear me? I nodded. I didn't understand, but I heard her. The first one said, always acknowledge the light when it comes. Do not hide. Do not run. I asked what light she meant. You'll know it when it shows up, she said, already turning away. Just make sure it knows you see it. That's what matters. The next few days passed slower than I expected. The Sea Mercy was no luxury vessel. She was a tired old shrimp boat turned fuel stop, run with the kind of discipline that comes from decades at sea. Every morning, Willa checked the lines and gear like she was prepping for war. I started learning the rhythm of it all. Where to stack the nets. How to test the radio. What noises meant something and which ones were just the boat creaking in her sleep. During the day, we had a steady stream of visitors. Local fishermen came by early, loading up on fuel and bait before heading into deeper water. Some were friendly enough. Others kept to themselves. Tourists dropped by too, clueless couples looking for adventure, their shoes too clean for a real dock. The Coast Guard showed up now and then, asking routine questions with eyes that stayed just a little too long on me. I knew the look. They weren't suspicious yet. Just curious. I kept my head down. Nights were different. Out past the dock, the fog started rolling in just after sunset. It moved slow, like it was searching for something. The radio would shift from static to strange signals, foreign songs, odd clicks, sometimes what sounded like children singing, way off in the distance. I figured it was old equipment picking up stray frequencies. At least that's what I told myself. One night, maybe a week in, I saw the light. It was a single white beam cutting across the water. Not a boat. Too fast, too smooth. It didn't sway with the waves. It glided, like it was pulled by something invisible. I was up in the wheelhouse, wiping down the counter when I spotted it. The hair on my arms stood up. I didn't even hear Willa come in. She just appeared beside me and threw the switches for the deck lights, flooding the boat in a harsh glow. Outside, she said. Now. We stepped out into the cold. The fog hugged us like a damp sheet, and there was that light hovering, watching. It wasn't blinking or sweeping. Just steady and still, maybe 2 football fields out. I wanted to look away, to step back into the wheelhouse, but Willa stopped me. You stand your ground, she said. Let it see you. That's what it wants. So I did. I stood there while my heart pounded like I'd just run a mile. I couldn't explain why, but I knew in my gut this wasn't a trick of light. This was something older. Something that didn't belong to the normal world. I felt it looking right at me, like it was sizing me up. And then, after a few minutes, it drifted away. It didn't fade. It moved. Smoothly, silently, gliding north along the shoreline like it had other places to visit. When it vanished into the fog, I finally breathed again. We didn't talk much after that. Willa poured coffee in the wheelhouse and handed me a mug without asking. The radio, which had been on a weather channel, suddenly started playing a song I didn't recognize. A sad tune about ships and storms. It made the hairs on the back of my neck lift again. Willa stared out the window for a long time before speaking. That was Carter Vane, she said. Died back in the 80s. Coast Guard cornered him in a storm. Fast boat, good instincts. Thought he could outrun the law and the sea. He didn't. Is that what I saw? I asked. His light, she said. His boat, still trying to outrun what caught him. He doesn't know he's gone. That's why we let him see us. So he knows we're not the ones he's after. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. Just stared at the surface of the coffee, dark and still. He's one of the easier ones, she added, almost to herself. Some of the others, they don't give warnings. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bunk, staring at the low ceiling, wondering what I'd signed up for. This was supposed to be a break. A place to disappear. But I was starting to think this place saw more than I wanted to show. And something told me that light was only the beginning. I didn't say anything to Willa the next morning, but I knew she could tell I hadn't slept. She handed me a cup of that diesel-tasting coffee before I even opened my mouth, and we got to work without much talk. That was the thing about her, you didn't need to explain what you were feeling. She just knew. And if she didn't want to talk about something, she didn't. I respected that. It made things easier between us. The day went on as usual. A few regulars came in early, grumbling about fuel prices or the weather or both. Willa handled them like she always did, short answers, firm tone, but never rude. I stuck to restocking bait bins and cleaning the fuel pump station. It was routine work, and for a while, it helped distract me from what had happened the night before. But it was always there. That light. That feeling. I couldn't shake it. Later that evening, a tourist boat pulled in around 10. A 50-something couple from Tennessee, judging by the way they talked. Their boat wasn't big, but it was fancy, polished chrome, clean leather seats, the kind of setup you buy when fishing's more about the look than the catch. The husband was pale and sweating, his hands trembling as he tried to tie off. I jumped in and secured the ropes for him before he dropped one in the water. Radio's out, he muttered, glancing over his shoulder. GPS went haywire. Whole system just blinked out. His wife, sitting near the helm with her life jacket half-zipped, didn't look much better. Her eyes were locked on the water, wide and unblinking. There was a light, she said softly, not looking at me. Bright. Still. Made everything feel heavy. I looked at Willa. She gave a small nod and waved their docking fee, told them to come aboard and rest for a bit. I brewed some fresh coffee while she checked their equipment. After about an hour, everything worked fine again, radio, navigation, even their depth reader. It was like nothing had ever gone wrong. Once they'd gone, back toward the marina with engines humming smooth again, Willa pulled out the rule sheet and placed it on the table between us. Her fingers tapped on the paper beside the second rule. Never take silver from someone who doesn't cast a shadow. I stared at it, confused. She didn't explain. Not then. Just looked at me with those tired eyes and said, "You'll know what I mean when it happens." The next night, I met him. I was wiping down the fuel station again, same job, same hour. The fog had rolled in early that day and now hung thick around the docks, muffling everything. No sound but the water tapping the hull like a clock running out. That's when I saw him. He didn't walk up. He was just there. Tall. Late 40s maybe. Wore an old yellow slicker that looked like it had weathered 100 storms. His face was forgettable, like a sketch someone gave up on halfway. But his eyes, they locked onto mine like we'd met before, like he expected me to remember. 10 gallons, he said. His voice was flat, a little off. Like someone trying to pass for human. I nodded and filled a canister he handed me. It was dented metal, military style, looked like it had been used since the Cold War. When I reached for payment, he held out 3 silver coins. Heavy. Cold. Colder than the night. I took them without thinking. As soon as they hit my palm, it felt wrong. Not just the temperature. The weight. The sound. It was like the air around me shifted, like I'd stepped into a room that wasn't on any map. He nodded once, turned around, and disappeared into the fog. I blinked. The fuel reading on the pump was back to 0. The canister was gone. I checked the dock, no boat, no sound, nothing but mist and silence. The coins burned against my skin. Willa must have seen my face when I came back inside. She looked up from the net she was fixing and didn't ask. She just said, "Show me." I placed the coins on the table. She didn't flinch. Just sighed and muttered something in Spanish under her breath. "You broke rule 2, she said. I opened my mouth to protest but didn't know what I was going to say. That he looked normal. That I didn't mean to. She stood up and opened a cabinet I hadn't noticed before. Inside was a wooden box, blackened by time. She opened it. Inside were dozens of coins like the ones I'd just handed her. "Dead men pay in silver," she said. "And they don't do it out of kindness. They do it because they want something carried forward." "What happens if you keep it?" I asked. "You start seeing things that aren't yours," she said. "Memories, voices. Sometimes even faces in the water. They'll follow you. Not always to harm, but always to remind." I didn't sleep again that night. I didn't even try. Just sat in my bunk, turning that moment over in my head. Wondering how many people he'd paid before me. Wondering what he wanted. The next morning, a woman named Laura showed up on the dock. She was in her 50s, wiry, and sharp like dried sea glass. Her boat was older than most, but solid. She climbed aboard the Sea Mercy like she'd been doing it her whole life. Turns out, she had. "Fog's been acting strange," she said to Willa, handing her a bundle of dried seaweed and glass beads. "Tide's pulling wrong. My dog won't go near the water." Willa nodded. No surprise in her expression. Laura turned to me and smiled kindly. "First time, huh?" I nodded. "You'll be fine," she said. "If you keep your head and listen." That night, I heard something I wasn't expecting. A voice. It came from the edge of the dock, just past the fog line. A woman's voice. Gentle. Calling my name. "Reed, come here. I need help." I froze. I recognized that voice. It was my mother's. She'd been dead for almost 10 years. But it was her. The same soft, tired way she used to speak to me when I came home late from school. I didn't move. Willa's voice came from behind me. "Don't answer. Rule 4. I turned. She held out a charm, seaweed wrapped in thread and salt crystals. "They use voices we miss," she said. "Ones that mean something. But they're not real. They just want you to step close." I took the charm and tucked it into my pocket. The voice faded after a few minutes. But it left something behind. A question I didn't know how to answer. If that wasn't real, why did it still make me feel something? That night, Willa told me something else. She said that not all spirits were dangerous. Some were just unfinished. Looking for something they lost. That's why we kept the rules. Not to fight the dead, but to respect them. To avoid being part of their business. A few nights later, I saw something that made my skin crawl. It was just after midnight. I was in the wheelhouse, checking the radio. Willa had gone below to sleep. The mirror beside the helm caught something behind me. A shadow. Tall. Wearing gear from another time, canvas overalls, a cap tilted back. I turned. Nothing there. I turned back to the mirror. He was still there. And this time, he pointed slowly, deliberately, toward the port side of the boat. I didn't move. Just watched him. He looked worried. Then he was gone. The next day, Willa didn't ask me what I saw. She just led me to a small hatch behind the wheelhouse and opened it. Inside was a tiny room lined with old, dusty mirrors. Some cracked. Some spotless. They show what's near, she said. Sometimes warnings. Sometimes memories. But never lies. You just have to know how to read them. She called the man I saw Johnny Bray. Said he drowned in '96 when he got pulled overboard during a net check. He's been showing up every few months since, she added. Never says a word. Just points. That night, the fog came in thicker than usual. I could barely see the end of the dock from the deck. But I didn't feel scared. I just felt watched. And not in a bad way. I was starting to understand the rules now. Not just follow them. Understand them. They weren't about superstition. They were about survival. About respect. Later that week, an old fisherman named Clay pulled up in his boat looking shaken. Said he saw ripples out in the channel, 7 perfect circles in a line, not moving with the current. Willa's face went pale. She didn't explain, not right away. Just handed him a charm and told him not to go near them. Not to anchor anywhere nearby. And to tell anyone he trusted to do the same. When he left, she turned to me and said only 2 words. Rule 6. I didn't ask what that one meant. Not yet. Something told me I'd find out soon enough. The strange part wasn't the 7 ripples. It was how calm the water looked around them. No wind, no waves. Just perfect little circles, evenly spaced, like someone had dropped pebbles into the sea one at a time with machine precision. Except no one had. And they didn't go away. I watched them for a long time from the deck, just past where the harbor lights gave up. They sat there like they were waiting. Those are not natural, I finally said, more to myself than anyone else. Willa didn't say much that day. She worked quietly, kept her hands moving, avoided eye contact. That was her way of telling me things were serious. She only ever got quiet when something old was waking up. That's what she called it, old. Like it had always been there. Just sleeping. That evening, she handed me a small mirror and a length of white rope. What's this for? I asked. You'll keep that mirror in your pocket until I say otherwise. If you see anything strange in it, anything at all, you tell me. Immediately. I didn't argue. I tied the mirror to my belt and checked it every hour. At first, I saw nothing but my own tired reflection. Then, just after midnight, I saw something else. It wasn't a face this time. It was a hand. Pale, wet-looking. Not grabbing. Just resting on the rail behind me in the mirror's reflection. But when I turned around, the rail was clean. Nothing there. My skin prickled as I checked the reflection again. The hand was gone. Willa noticed my face when I stepped back inside. What did you see? I told her. Left or right hand, she asked, calm like she was asking if I'd spilled coffee. Right. She nodded slowly. That's an omen. Not for you. For someone close. I didn't ask how she knew. I was past that. I just tucked the mirror deeper into my belt and kept quiet. The next day, an old man named Jasper came to the boat. He'd been fishing the Gulf for decades. The kind of guy who knew the sea like most people know their street corner. When he walked up, his face was pale. Not scared. Just hollow. Like he'd already accepted something and didn't like it. They're moving, he said to Willa. The ripples. A little closer this morning than they were last night. Willa didn't blink. She just grabbed the charm bag and handed him one wrapped in dark blue string and seaweed that looked almost black. Keep this on you. If they reach the shore, call me. No matter the hour. Jasper nodded and left without another word. That afternoon, Willa took me to a part of the boat I hadn't seen before. It was a narrow stairway tucked behind the engine room, hidden by a loose metal panel. At the bottom was a room I could barely stand in. It smelled like damp earth and salt and something else, something that reminded me of water too deep to see through. The walls were lined with coral. Not the bright kind. This stuff was dull, Grey, fossil-like. It didn't look grown. It looked built. This room is older than the boat, Willa said. Built into her before she was ever turned into a fuel runner. My father called it the anchor. Anchor for what? I asked. For keeping things out, she said. And sometimes, for keeping things in. She handed me a binder, thick with old photos. Each one showed the Gulf in different states, storms, strange lights, odd reflections on flat water. Some had boats half sunk. Some had people in the distance, blurry and ghost-like. I flipped through until one photo stopped me. 7 dark rings in the water. Same pattern as I'd seen. Same distance apart. That's what the tide eater leaves behind, she said. Those are its footprints. I didn't like the way she said that. Like it was alive. What is it? I asked. A hunger, she said. It doesn't have a name, not really. Just a pattern. It feeds during blood moons. And it always starts with the ripples. When's the next one? I asked. She didn't answer. Just pulled out her old calendar and pointed. 3 nights away. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on deck with the mirror in one hand and a flashlight in the other. The fog didn't come in like before, it was already there, waiting. I kept hearing small things, a splash, a whisper, the creak of rope under tension. But when I looked, nothing moved. Still, I stayed up until dawn. The next morning, Willa was already up. She was cutting strips of dried kelp and wrapping them in thread, sliding in tiny bits of polished glass. Charms, she said. We'll need a lot more. We started making them together, sitting at the tiny table in the wheelhouse with the radio playing low in the background. It played songs I didn't recognize, old folk tunes, soft and sad. I tried to stay focused, but my hands kept messing up the knots. Your head's not clear, she said. I didn't deny it. I keep thinking about Lily, I said finally. What if this thing, what if it comes for her somehow? Willa's eyes softened just slightly. That's not how it works. It pulls what's close. Physically and emotionally. That's why you need to stay grounded. I'd trade anything to keep her safe, I said. Anything. She didn't reply. Just handed me another charm to wrap. That afternoon, ISA came back. I didn't recognize her at first. She stepped on board like she'd done it 100 times, carrying a bag of polished shells and seaweed bundles. Hey, Reed, she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. You holding up? I nodded slowly. Do I know you? Her smile faltered, just for a second. We talked, a lot. Walked the beach a few times. You showed me pictures of your daughter. Said you were trying to be better. I wanted to remember. I wanted to give her that moment back. But I couldn't. I'm sorry, I said quietly. It's gone. She nodded. That's what happens when you trade memories to stay alive. You give up something that mattered. But I still care about her, I said. About Lily. That never left. That's because it wasn't just a memory, she said. It's part of you. She arranged her shells on the rail with the same kind of focus Willa had when she was checking knots. These are for Carter. The light you saw your first week. He deserves to be remembered, too. I stood beside her in silence for a while. Watching. Learning. That night, the fog was thicker than it had ever been. The radio played a strange melody, soft, high-pitched, like someone humming in a far-off room. And the ripples were closer. I could see them clearly now from the deck. They looked deeper. Sharper. The blood moon would rise in 2 nights. The next day, Willa called a meeting. We cleared the below-deck area and packed it with water, food, flashlights, old Polaroid cameras, and as many charms as we could make. Once the moon rises, we don't go above deck. Not unless it's an emergency. And even then, we don't go alone. I looked around the room. Jasper was there. ISA. A few others from the town I hadn't met properly. Their faces were serious. No one cracked a joke. No one asked dumb questions. They all knew. The radio crackled again, and a woman's voice sang something soft and slow. 3 times in one night, Willa whispered. If you hear it 3 times, that's the call. The call for what? For the hunt. That night, just after midnight, I checked the mirror again. I saw someone new. An old man. Dressed like someone out of a sepia-toned photo. His face had deep lines, and his eyes were wide like he'd seen something no one should. He stood on the deck in the mirror's reflection, staring out at the water. Then he turned and pointed. Same direction as the ripples. I blinked. He was gone. I didn't sleep that night either. And I had a feeling tomorrow night would be worse. The night of the blood moon didn't feel like any other night. It wasn't colder. It wasn't stormy. But something in the air was different. Like the wind had decided to hold its breath. The water around the dock didn't ripple. The fog didn't drift. It just stayed where it was, thick and still, like it was waiting too. Willa anchored the Sea Mercy in a sheltered inlet around midday. Said it was the safest place we could be. The mangroves wrapped around us like crooked fingers, and the water was shallow but wide, with no other boats in sight. She checked every line twice, locked down the fuel system, and sealed the lower cabin with salt along the doorway. Nobody said much after that. Inside, we had 17 people, locals, mostly. Some I recognized from the harbor, some I'd never seen before. Isa sat in the corner threading glass shards into a new charm, her hand steady like this was just another Tuesday. Jasper cleaned his fishing knife like it needed to shine for what was coming. I paced. The radio buzzed off and on with soft static. Sometimes a crackle of voice. Sometimes just noise. No music yet. We waited for that. When the sun dropped, the sky didn't darken like usual. Instead, it turned this strange shade like dried blood over glass. And then the moon appeared. Not red like people describe in stories. It was deeper. Like something raw. Something that shouldn't be looked at directly. I felt it the second it hit the water. A low hum started. Not sound, exactly. More like pressure in my bones. Everyone felt it. Even the boat itself groaned, like the wood remembered things it wanted to forget. Willa gathered us into the anchor room, the one below the engine that smelled like old seawater and thyme. No one goes topside, she said. Not unless the boat shifts or we lose someone. We all nodded. That was the agreement. The humming got louder. The photos taped to the walls started to flutter, like a wind was passing through even though there was none. I watched them. One photo, one I hadn't noticed before, showed a boat like ours, half sunk, its lights still on. And behind it, rising from the water, a shape that wasn't quite real. Dark. Wide. Like smoke underwater. I felt sick. The radio let out a sharp screech. Then music. A soft melody. A woman singing. That's one, Willa said. Everyone fell quiet. The lights flickered, and I grabbed the Polaroid from my belt, just like she told me. It wasn't just for photos. It was for truth. The lens didn't lie like our eyes did. I took a picture through the porthole. When it developed, I saw the ripples, clearer now. 7 of them. Only now they weren't just sitting still. They were pulsing, like something under the water was breathing. The humming vibrated in my teeth. The second song came. The same voice. A little louder now. A little clearer. Willa's hands tightened on her charm bundle. Isa lit a candle made of salt wax. Jasper moved closer to the stairwell. Then I heard it. My daughter's voice. Dad. It wasn't loud. But it cut through the room like a blade. Dad, it's me. I'm in the water. I can't breathe. My whole body froze. The voice came again. Please help me. I don't know where Mom is. It's dark. I moved before I could stop myself. Willa tried to grab my arm, but I slipped through. I climbed the ladder fast, ignoring the shouting behind me. My head told me it wasn't real, but everything else in me said go. I burst onto the deck. The moonlight was red, washing everything in the color of a wound. And there they were. Nora and Lily. Nora stood by the bow, barefoot, wearing the blue dress from our court hearing. Lily was crying, her arms reaching out. Please help me, she said again. But their faces were wrong. Too smooth. Too still. Their eyes didn't blink. Then I saw the thing behind them. It wasn't a person. It wore a coat like an old oilskin, black and slick. Its face was blank. No eyes, no mouth. Just skin stretched over something tall and wrong. It didn't move. Just stared. I backed up. "Trust the camera," Willa had said. "Not your eyes." My hands shook as I raised the Polaroid. The flash burst. When the photo developed, I saw the truth. Only the creature stood at the bow. Nora and Lily weren't there. Just the shape. Tall. Watching. The tide eater. It didn't lunge. It didn't chase. It just tilted its head, like it was waiting for me to speak. I remembered what Willa told me. If it comes for you, offer it something valuable. Not your body. Not your blood. Something deep. I held the photo in my hand. The one of my daughter. I thought of her laugh. The time she fell asleep in my arms after the fireworks. The smell of her hair after a bath. The way she looked at me when I said I'd come back and didn't. "I'll give you the day I came here," I said out loud. The first day I stood on this boat. The moment I decided to stay. Take that. The creature didn't move. Then it stepped forward, silent and smooth. I felt something slice through me, not pain, but like a gust of cold through my brain. Memories started unraveling. Mira's bait shop. The first job. My hands learning the ropes. The guilt. The hope. All of it dissolved, like salt in water. And just like that, the creature was gone. So was Nora. So was Lily. The red moon still hung, but the deck was empty. I stumbled back down below. Willa looked at me. "What did you give it?" "The start," I said. "The beginning." She nodded. "It's enough." The third song never played. By morning, the fog had lifted. The moon was just a memory. The hum was gone. But so was a part of me. I couldn't remember why I came. Or how I found this boat. I knew my name. I knew I had a daughter. I knew I owed money to someone. But the rest? Gone. Willa helped me piece things back together. She pulled out a photo of me cleaning the radio. Another of me fixing nets. She said I'd learned fast. Said I reminded her of someone named Matteo. I believed her. The days went on. I didn't leave. I stayed. One Tuesday morning, ISA showed up again. She brought coffee and a bag of shells. Said she wanted to talk. We sat on the rail and watched the water. "You told me once you wanted to protect something for a change," she said. "Not just take. You said Lily deserved a father who didn't run anymore." I nodded. The memory wasn't there. But the truth in it was. We sat quietly as she laid the shells out for Elias, the drowned smuggler. I helped her finish the pattern. That afternoon, federal agents came by. Asking about a missing tourist. A woman named Emily. Last seen renting a boat near our dock. Willa answered calmly, said the currents here could be rough. That the deeper waters weren't always safe. They asked questions. Took notes. Promised to return. When they left, Willa led me below. To the anchor room. To the ledger. She let me read it. Names. Dates. Moon phases. Notes. Emily's name was there now, written in clean ink. "Every name strengthens the tides," she said. "Every loss makes the line between here and there a little thinner. What keeps it from breaking? You," she said. "Me. This boat. The rules." That night, another boat drifted into the inlet. A pleasure skiff, empty, its engine dead. No lights. No sound. I took the photo. The image showed tendrils, thin, black, reaching up from the water. Curling around the hull. When the Coast Guard found it, there was nothing inside. Just an empty cooler and a pair of flip-flops. Willa wrote it in the ledger. I stood watch the rest of the night. Just like always. The drowned light came again around 3 a.m., sliding across the water like a memory that couldn't rest. I flipped the deck lights on, so it would know I saw it. Respect, not fear. That's what keeps the worst of it away. I sat on the railing with my coffee, watching the water return to calm. The fog whispered. The old voices settled. And I stayed right where I was, guarding the rules that had saved my life, whether I remembered them or not.